Hello, my name's Martin Dorey and you are watching Adorama TV. Welcome to the second episode of my new series about photographers working at the extremes. I'll be rummaging around in their kit bags to find out what they use and how they get some of the shots that they have. Now today, I'm back with photographer and lecturer Andy Hughes on Dartmoor National Park. It's amazing to talk to him about the work he does with some of his students. He's going to be teaching them today how to capture images with a large format camera and how that can relate back to their digital photography. Okay, Andy, so you're here today on Dartmoor with a bunch of your students from the college with your other hat on. So would you mind explaining to us what you're doing today and what your students hope to learn from it?
Yes, so I'm here today with a bunch of my first year degree students from Truro College. And we're out just exploring the landscape today, really, and getting them to look at using some digital technologies, but also getting them to sort of appreciate the sort of the beauty and the slowness of using analog photography. And that's why I brought this 10x8 plate camera today. And we're going to be setting this up this afternoon. And basically, instead of using film, we're going to be using photographic paper. And that's going to be, touch wood, processed in the van. So I've turned the van into a little mini darkroom.
So today your students will learn everything from setting the exposure to loading the camera, and eventually we'll end up with a finished print.
Well, yeah, they'll end up with a print, but it'll be negative, of course. So maybe at some future point later in the week, they will scan that in and then invert that in Photoshop, so they end up with a positive. So you can use positive paper, which I have been using, but that's particularly temperamental to use. It's quite difficult to use.
So you're going back to absolute basics. And how do you find that that will influence your students when it comes to going back to their digital photography?
The key thing is to, because this is basically a box, isn't it, really? It has a lens, it has a bellows, and it has something where the light receives onto a plate, onto photographic film. Because the reality is, most photography, that's what it's about. It's just about light hitting the surface, whether that's an analog surface or a digital CCD. So today, by the end of today, they've all realised that this, stuff we call light is controlled by, a lens, passes through this space and hits. So I think the key thing is, sometimes digital photography is very much related to, literally pressing a button in a sequence and maybe using the fact that a computer is inside there, is doing things for you that you need to control. This is entirely different because you have to set the aperture, you have to measure the light, you have to use, cock the shutter. It's all sort of like it's like a finely tuned watch. Digital photography is fantastic, but it does allow people to work at ease, but also with speed, and anybody will also begin to understand that looking after and archiving your digital photographs is a task in itself, because nowadays people are shooting thousands of pictures, and all those thousands of pictures maybe never get looked at really. When you're working with a camera like this or use as film, you take one picture, it takes you 20 minutes. You're going to get 5 pictures done in an afternoon, not 5,000. So that slowing down it's like yoga for photographers. It's a yoga experience.
So they're having to really think about composition, their aperture, their exposure, the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think it stops you and it makes you look. Because when you have this camera and you've got a cape over and you're looking at this flat screen, I would say it's like watching a film on an iPhone or being in a cinema. They're two different things, aren't they? If you're in the cinema, you get the whole scale, size and smell of the thing. If you're watching it on an iPhone small, it's a private moment. It sometimes doesn't give you that vastness. This is a different kind of experience, and those two things complement themselves.
So where would you rather be? Where are you happiest? Using this or using a digital camera?
I won't come down on either. I would think, the thing is, inclement weather is obviously a problem with this sort of technology because it's longer. So if it's colder, windier, you can't use a camera like this in the wind.
This is the polar opposite of how you shoot when you do your trash photography, isn't it?
But I think what I'm going to do though is I'm thinking I might take this to Glastonbury. Can you imagine having this in Glastonbury, in a tent, 4 inches off the ground, taking one photograph? I mean, it can be done.
But surely it would be less of the moment than your previous
It'll be less
stuff,
of the
perhaps.
moment, but you know what will happen? You'll get into conversations, because photography often is about conversations. So whether it's photographers talking about kit, talking about the latest camera, talking about the subject, when you take this out into a public space, people stop and talk to you. Because photography is a conduit to conversation. I think a lot of people tend to think photography is this instant visual recording of things and memories, but the reality is, whether it's the family snapshot or the GoPro piece of film, snowboarding, when you're watching that piece of film, you might be with your girlfriend, your partner, your kids, you're having a conversation about how amazing it was to go down that snowboarding or surf that wave with the GoPro. It's about conversations.
Thanks for joining me today on Adorama TV. Don't forget to like, comment on or share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Adorama TV for more great videos. And also, please, if you want more great hints and tips, please go to the Learning Centre. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.